You mentioned that people in Greece and in other parts of the world pay close attention to the American election because what goes on in America affects them. Yes. I think that's true. And I think self-management says something about that. The American election actually should be an election in which the whole world votes. Because since we bully and impose our will on people all over the world, we affect people all over the world dramatically, sometimes more than here. And so people should have a say. Of course, that's not in the near term going to happen, but that would be right. That's a thought that can't come into the mind of a typical American commentator. Okay, so that's the first point. The second point is, will American foreign policy change depending upon whether, what's his name, McCain, I call him the bombardier, wins, or Obama or Clinton wins? Will it make a difference, and will it change from Bush? The bombardier might even be worse, nobody knows, but it's possible. It depends. See, the mistake that people make, commentators and analysts and everybody else, is they think that the main variable here is sort of what's in the mind of the candidate. Well, that's almost irrelevant. That is to say, first of all, we have no idea what's in the mind of the candidate. The candidates routinely lie. They routinely say whatever people need to hear in order for them to win. So to base your assessment of things on your picture of the will and the desire of the candidate is, I think, naive, even ignorant. Notice that isn't what the 50% who don't vote do. They're much smarter than that. And a large number of people who vote are much smarter than that, too. We'll come back to that in a minute. So it is very hard to see a distinction between the two Democrats on international relations. You can, in what they are saying, see very significant distinctions between what they're saying and what McCain is saying on international relations, but that doesn't tell us what would actually happen. What would tell us what would happen is more related in any event, not to their views, but to the state of the country at any given time. Now here the election matters, because if McCain wins, it says that the population is willing, in the large, at least the voting population, about half of it, at least the voting population that vote for McCain if he wins, about a quarter of the population, but still, the people who are doing, is willing to put up with more of the same, or maybe even worse. And that would create an environment in which we would probably get more of the same or even worse. But if either Obama or Clinton were to win, the context would be a broad public expectation of substantial changes, not the changes that we want in the long run, but short-run changes. And I do think there would be some. On the other hand, Iraq is important to the United States, way more important than most people on the left understand. You can't just lose in Iraq. You must, unless there is gigantic pressure to the contrary, you must try to maintain control over Mideast oil. And they will try and do that no matter who wins. Will they get out? Maybe, because there is tremendous resistance. There is tremendous opposition to the war that is growing. If it continues to grow through the election, it's possible that it will force them out. But it won't be because of the will of Obama or the will of Clinton. It'll be because of the will of the American public. So that's a crucial. In the United States, we have a two-party system. They are both elite parties. It's really two wings of one party, right? The corporate party. So in the United States, what we have is a party which is beholden to and serves the interests of the rich and powerful. The contests between candidates are, by and large, about how best for the haves to administer and dominate the have-nots. There are differences in how you do that, and those are often encapsulated in the difference between Republicans and Democrats. Those differences largely have to do with the difference between feeling that you can press harder to get more, or feeling that pressing too hard might risk what you have. And so the Democrats are a little more open to and conducive to realizing that pressure is too high on the population and that more has to be afforded to them. And the Republicans are more prone, this is in general, prone to simply extracting what they can get. Now there's another feature, a little wrinkle, which is the rise of this religious fundamentalism in the United States, which was very much involved in Bush's victory and might be involved in McCain's victory or defeat, because it might not support him. That's very dangerous. That is different from the other stuff. That is, like Muslim fundamentalism, it is an ideological orientation which is vulgar in many dimensions and is not simply about profit. It has other dimensions. So that sometimes now complicates modern American elections. But in general, American elections are basically debates between the haves about how to deal with the have-nots. And it can have implications. So, for instance, suppose you were in prison and there was going to be an election of the next warden, the prison warden, and two people are running. Well, you might decide you're going to vote because you discern, despite the fact that they're both lying like crazy, you find some way to discern what you think is a difference between them that would affect you. So you vote. You might also decide, I'm not going to vote for one of these guys. These guys are about screwing me. I'll be damned if I'm going to participate. Okay, so that's the 50% who don't vote. And among the 50% who do vote, we then have people who try to find some reason to make a choice between these two guys, two candidates, right? Okay, so now how do they make that choice? Well, if they're highly educated, by and large, the more education you have in the United States, the dumber you are. That's true. In other words, the more education you have, the less you understand the world, and the more confused and ridiculous beliefs you have. So if you're highly educated, you actually listen to the debates, and you listen to what the candidates say, and you make your choice based on their actual promises, which is just like listening to a congenital liar and acting on the basis of what they're telling you. That's what the so-called smart people and educated people do. If you're not that smart and educated, which is to say if you still have a brain, you don't do that. So among the 50% who vote, roughly speaking, about 30% take a different tack. They ask themselves, what is it about these candidates that I can believe? And it's interesting. This is why some issues are so powerful in the United States. Abortion, gun control, the personalities of the candidates. These things are powerful because they're believable. That is to say, the candidate's personality is not going to change. And it is what it is. And so if you make your choice based on that, you're not deceived. If you make your choice based on a gun control issue, the odds are very, very good that they're not going to change, that they're telling you the truth. On abortion, the odds are very good that they're telling you the truth. Right? On foreign policy, it makes no sense to pay attention. Right? There is no reason to believe what they're telling you. So the so-called ignorant folks who vote based on abortion and gun control and personality, right, are actually making smarter choices given the mess that we live in, right? If you accept that as a given, right? Than the people who pore over their books or something and then think that they've discerned a difference between Obama and Clinton, or for that matter, even maybe the Bombardier and whoever runs. Although there are real differences. Okay, so that's, I guess that's roughly the way I feel about it. I think it's a major thing, not small, that Obama and Clinton are running. I don't think that's small. I think that says something major about the country. And the fact that some guy named Barack Hussein Obama has a chance of being president in the United States is in some ways absolutely mind-boggling, right? That is absolutely incredible. And I think you're going to see it, if it's him, you're going to see a campaign that is going to get incredibly ugly from McCain. And then we'll see what happens. And if it's Clinton, it'll also get incredibly ugly, except around gender instead of race. But the fact that they're there, the fact that they've come as far as they have, not because they're so great, but because it says that there are people who are willing to cast ballots for a woman or for a black, is a big step in the United States. It is not small. It is a major sort of verification of something a lot of us knew, but a lot of others didn't know. And it's good.